Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Coach K, and we're going to talk today about the rich getting richer. This is the Game Changers Championship curriculum, and I have been discussing the social issues and critical analysis and with some coaching sessions as well as empowerment sessions for the inspiration in the spirit and holistically in the body and in our world in regards to finances and economic development, environmental justice, as well as civil justice and more. We are going to take the time to get a comprehensive look at the anatomy of the intersections and the biases of our relationships and the building of relationships and healthy relationships versus toxic relationships, and how to detox and how to correct, align, assess, and do all sorts of things that create prosperity for those that do not want to be rich but want to be useful and productive and a high performer using what you have and want to live a prosperous life in a prosperous soul. So now we focus on these three scholars and we dive into their mind, their research, their holistic approach to inventing new systems, and then we'll discuss my recommendation and my insight and my expertise and my experience, and also my ability to interact with this information. And we'll close up and see if we can continue on this journey of building a curriculum to build from grassroots, from the bottom up and top down, so that everyone can grow and multiply. And this is what it means to share your wealth and multiply. And let's play ball. So let's go ahead and get into the paint. So we're going to start off with The Rich Getting Richer and The Poor Gets Prison by Dr. Raymond and Dr. Layton. We're now still working through chapter 1, but there's only 4 chapters. And we're on the conversation about guns today. And this is on page 36 in this book. And I'm going to start reading. And as you know, we only read one page, we discuss it, and then we move on to some coaching techniques that you can implement in your life as mediation and conflict resolution management systems, and build your own nations and your communities by governing yourself and then changing the world as champions and game changers. So let's begin. So this is what this scholar is saying. Most people know the expression, guns don't kill people, people kill people. But guns make it easier, much easier to kill people. So the huge stock of civilian guns, especially handguns, is a source of a firearm homicide rate in the United States that Oxford's Crime and Public Policy says is extraordinarily high by the standards of other industrialized countries. And because the fatality rate for robberies using a gun is 3 times higher than the robberies with knives and 10 times higher than the robberies with other weapons. Countries like Italy and Australia that have robbery rates comparable to the United States have far fewer robberies that end up as homicides. Speaking about the extraordinary spate of deadly violence that we had in the late 1980s and early 1990s, Garen Wintemute puts it bluntly. The entire increase in homicide in the United States through 1993 was attributable to firearm homicide. Increasingly, this was due to highly lethal semi-automatic pistols. During the same period, the percentage of homicides were regular revolvers declined significantly. Hospitals reported an increase in gunshot wounds per victim and in the size of bullets removed. This phenomenon is closely linked to trends in handgun and production. Starting in the late 1980s, American gun manufacturers started producing high capacity, medium caliber, semi automatic pistols that were also very inexpensive. Almost all were produced by a small group of manufacturers in Southern California. A study by the nonpartisan National Research Council suggests that by 1999, the civilian gun stock was 258 million, with about 43% of households owning at least one. Researchers from Harvard School of Public Health estimated the number of privately owned firearms to be between 218 and 281 million. They noted that researchers have estimated about 25 guns per 100 people in countries such as Canada, New Zealand, Germany, France, and Sweden on the basis of current estimates from our survey. The U.S. has 93 guns per 100 people. The President's Crime Commission reported that in 1965, 5,600 murderers, 34,700 aggravated assaults, and the vast majority of 68,000 armed robberies were committed by means of firearms. All but 10 of 278 law enforcement officers murdered during the period of 1960 to 65 were killed with firearms. The commission concluded that more than one half of all willful homicides and armed robberies and almost one-fifth of all aggravated assaults involve use of firearms. As long as there is no effective gun control legislation, violent crimes and the injuries they inflict will be harder to reduce than they might otherwise be. The situation has worsened since the commission's warning. The FBI states in 1975, 66% of murders of persons aged 15 to 19 were attributable to gun, while in 1992 the figure rose to 85%. This increase supports the theory that today's high school age youths are exposed to an environment that includes guns. The Office of Juvenile Justice reports by 1997, the homicide rate for 15 to 24 years old was 15.2 per 100,000, which is higher than the combined total homicide rate of 11 industrialized nations, and goes on to point out firearms were the weapons of choice in nearly two-thirds of all murders. And in 2001, then President Bush noted, in America, a teenager today is more likely to die from a gunshot than from all natural causes of death combined. Okay, so that is the conversation for today's about guns, and that is the reading for from The Rich Get Richer. So we're going to talk about how do we evoke excellence into others and into ourselves, because one of the major interest or need in human societies is not to go extinct. And what does that mean? Is self-preservation, community preservation, and quality of life. Okay, why be alive if you don't have quality of life? Some people have committed suicide based on that primary reason, is why live if you don't have quality of life. So with that said, how do we decrease mortality rates and increase immortality rates? Is through quality of life and allowing people the protection of life. So how do we do that without becoming a offender or violating other people's privacy and their ability to live civility lives and quiet lives and work quietly. And what I mean by quietly means to be able to have a social contract, abide into that social contract, and not be disturbed, as you see with the natural laws of environmental justice or the environment, the planet Earth. It is not to be disturbed. And when it is disturbed, we see, global warming or climate changes because the interaction of humans is disturbing the natural flow of its succession of quiet stillness living, of not being disturbed. And we are not being good stewardship in that process. So, again, in children development and human development, how can we evoke excellence in ourselves and into others without violation, without offense, or without being an offender, being a murderer? It doesn't matter whether you're a service professional or not, whether you're under the law or not. It's the same conclusion, the same results is the murder and the killing and the taking away of someone's life and not giving them choice to live. And that is the basic right, a human right is to live. So let's dig into a technique in coaching. So this is coming from the scholar James Flattery. And this is, we are on chapter 1 still, I think. We're on page 27. Let me make sure because we have finished, I think. Yeah, we finished chapter 1 last time, so we're on chapter 2. Okay, and that was on page 31 for those that had gone out and purchased the books. So here it is. This chapter will serve as an overview of the whole coaching process, what I'm calling the flow of coaching. The presentation is linear, and our experiences, conversations, and lives are not. Consequently, the flow is usually not as simple or direct as is shown in the text. The stages are really bias, which indicate for trained observers where they are on the journey through the bay and can indicate to the coach how the work is progressing. The point of the chapter is to identify the indicators and provide a framework in which a coach can think and design. As you begin to work with this flow, it will make more and more sense to you. And at some point, you won't need to refer to it for guidance anymore. Instead, you will naturally move in your own particular way through the various stages of coaching. Until then, here is a proven structure for you to use. Each stage is distinct. However, the boundaries between stages frequently merge so that it is difficult to determine when one ends and one starts. For learning purposes, though, it's useful to keep the stages separate and distinct and to speak about each of them individually. The remainder of the book will address each stage in its own chapter. The purpose here is to show you an overview of the flow and the interconnection between the stages. You can use the flow to design your actions and as a diagnostic tool when your coaching isn't working, when diagnosing start with this stage you're on or work backwards, assessing whether you have successfully fulfilled the requirements of each stage. Keep working in this way until you have discovered the exact source of the problem. Correct it at the level at which it appears by providing what's missing or by revising what has already been done. Some readers may feel that this is too much structure, that it will inhibit their spontaneity, slow the flow of their natural intuitive responses. So you have to find the balance. So we're gonna talk about relationship, the technique of relationships after this. or that somehow the structure will become more important than either the interaction or the outcome. You will find in practice, I think that none of this is the case. Doing coaching is like playing jazz. The coach, like a jazz player, must understand where to begin and where to end, and what is the basic structure could be in the moment, while at the same time listening well to the music that the others are playing so as to blend with it and move the entire joint effort forward. Even while a jazz musician is improvising, she is always playing within a structure. That's why I say that coaching people is like playing jazz. By knowing the structure so well that it fades into the background, the coach has the freedom to creatively respond to the moment while still being confident that the desired outcomes are being realized. I will use the example of Bob, which I have referenced earlier, as an illustrative of the different stages of the flow of coaching. First, I'll present the theoretical basis for the stage. Then I will fold in the story of Bob. So here's the flow. So you can have a picture, and I'll try to take a picture and or type up the flow. You have the first stage is establish the relationship. You have the second stage, recognize opening. And the third stage, observe and assess. And then you have the fourth, enroll the client. And the fifth, coaching conversations. So we will be taking each stage of that flow. But this chapter and this technique is called finding your flow. And so if you want to understand guns, you have to find your flow to work within that structure of guns in the 21st century. You cannot be out of pocket or out of the paint. You got to stay inside the paint. And staying inside the paint as a basketball player means you got to know your flow. You got to know your rhythm. You got to know your pace. And then stay within that, because that will give you the high performance of your ability, of your skill, of your expertise. And it won't allow you to fall in the traps of bias or discrimination or being narrow-minded or short-sighted, or as some people will call it, judgmental. It'll allow you to stay open and eliminate as many barriers to give you the highest return of accuracy. And so we use this word, the flow, to illustrate what it means to find your spirit and run inside of that unison, to run inside of that alignment and centering and balancing component of technique of coaching people to de-escalate, coaching people to increase immortality, to increase civility, to increase their willpower to function, to perform, and to be productive without using guns. Using your powerful voice or your powerful intention and sincerity is the highest accuracy as a human form of consciousness. We think it's guns, we think it's the highest form of defense, but it's not. It is a form of defense, just like bioweapons. It is a form of defense to kill, steal, and destroy, but it's not the highest defense formula that we have the potential in our what we call our sorry, in our studio